Dita, good morning. Thank you for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The first mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I vow to cultivate compassion and learn ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I'm determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to condone any act of killing in the world, in my thinking, or in my way of life. We've been reading a collection of Dhamma talks by the nuns of Amaravati called The Body, Dhamma Reflections on Aging, Illness, and Death. This morning we're beginning a talk by Ajahn Sundara called Suffering and Its Cause. While on retreat, hopefully you've experienced some of the fruits of practice, how the mind can settle down and turn inwardly more easily, how you can be with yourself without too much struggle. But this will perhaps be more difficult at home in your own environment with all your familiar things around you, the usual props that keep your life going. Sometimes we pick up the teachings in a way that may not be helpful. This might be because of the strength of our intellect or the rigid discipline we've developed over the years, the attachment we have to our little brain. So when we pick up the teachings, we create something out of them which might not be so helpful. If right view is not present, then there's always a discrepancy between what you're experiencing and what the mind is saying it should experience. There's kind of a gap, and that can actually make life worse than before. Before, you might have been deluded, but there was no gap. You were just happily hopping along in your delusion. Now you can't do that anymore. You know too much. Again and again, when I meet people on retreat or when I teach, I notice how much we create obstacles by mishandling the teachings or not looking at the teachings with right view. Instead of using them as a means, we turn them into a goal. Imagine if you had a good recipe for cooking something delicious, and you've heard stories about this recipe from all the greatest cooks in the world. Then you do your little cooking on your little stove in your little kitchen, and it never tastes very good compared to what these great cooks are saying about that dish. If we keep comparing ourselves to all the great chefs in the world, then it's a terribly disappointing experience. We keep feeling that we're missing something dreadfully important, that our ingredients are not right, and then our self-esteem just goes down the drain. It's really important to somehow cultivate a practice in which the goal vanishes, the goal being the shoulds. I should be kind. I should be sincere. I should be able to deal with situations. I should be good. I should be loving, caring, mindful, patient, generous. We don't hear the voice of this goal clearly because it is what has already somatized. It's already in the body. And the body just feels the stress of that hidden agenda. Life can end up being an ongoing, stressful experience because it's never good enough. It's never right enough. It feels as if somehow where I am now is not where I should be. You think that not only should you be experiencing something else, but what you are experiencing is incorrect. There's a huge amount of judgment. You may think to yourself, but I should not be like that. Yes, of course you should not be like that. If you were the Buddha, you would not be like that. But if you look closely, you can see that there's a hidden conceit there as well, as if we are already thinking of ourselves as being a fully enlightened being, And as a fully enlightened being, we should not be like that. We should be mindful, generous, loving, caring. The goal of the path is not sainthood. We're not here to become perfect people, but to see the way things are. That's a very profound teaching, because many of us are still trying to be a saint or idealized good person, not realizing that goodness doesn't come from grasping at goodness. Goodness comes from actually being free from attachment to this mind, to this body. So there's a bit of work to do. None of us is free yet. We're still quite attached, not just to the mind and body, but to all the wounds, all the hurts, all the pain that we have experienced through this life. So you can't expect to practice like a Buddha when you're still dealing with the wounds of your life. This is why sometimes the more psychological aspects of the practice are important. We need to attend to the hurt. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for joining me this morning.